Ready to get going. Tuesday, I know Monday's the official November 3rd. Everybody gets to be able to play, and excited to get going on November 4th. It's hard for me. I think like a lot of coaches, you're aware of the prognosticators and the things that are said, but you're anxious to see where your team's at. You're trying to in my mind, prove a lot of people wrong, and I think everybody has the same goal, and that's to win a conference championship. And so there's a bigger vision here, but at the same time, you're anxious to get started on the execution and what the pieces actually look like in a real live competitive environment.
Is the proving people wrong mindset. I'm sure that a coach has that every single year whenever you go into the season. Does that get amplified when you got a lot of guys that you've never seen play together? And you want to see them play for the first time and show everybody else as well. I imagine.
Well, you understand it. I mean, usually the teams that turn around and return a number of players usually have an opportunity in order to be ranked high in the preseason. I think I saw this week that five teams that were all ranked in the top 10 in football, only four of them are currently ranked. And a lot of those teams, had a lot of returning players. You are here to kind of dispel the myth that it takes a while in order to put a team together. And so, I do think that teaching the game is a lot different than what it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so you've been able to think through what can you implement, what can you install within a 2 week period, and then try to refine over a 2 month period. So there has been a lot of that. And when you think about both sides of the ball, that takes a while. So from a standpoint, I've always been a bit of a challenge guy. The more kind of say can't do something, the more you're itching to prove that you can. So there is a little bit of let's play Tuesday night and let's see where we're at.
Gives you confidence that this group can prove people wrong.
Yeah, one, who they are as players. I think they've all come from winning programs. Not all of them, but a large portion of them have. You have that in Mike. You have that in Kenya, and you have that in Will. And I think that coaches used to think about development, and when you put your 13 players, as it was in previous years together, you think about these are 3 or 4 guys that we believe we can develop. Now I think development is kind of it's crucial, but it's not. You're not thinking long term. You may think about 1 or 2 players that are long term, but you're not thinking about 3 or 4. So I think all of these guys have won. We've been together since June, so I've seen the people that they are, understand where they came from. Nothing but positive reinforcements in regards to what I've been told. I was telling somebody the other day, we have had zero issues off the court with this group. I mean, zero. And it has it. I'm a big believer that good people make good players, and they've done everything right, and we'll see how it goes moving forward.
Coach, just kind of take me through kind of the mindset mentality right now with the core that you had. I know you said you focused really heavily on perimeter shooting when you kind of went out in the portal and you got some new guys, but kind of take me through how everybody's gelling right now headed into Tuesday.
Yeah, we haven't had much in the way of injuries. I mean, we've had pretty much had all 15 of them since June, and we've begun, and that's a blessing. And so, um, what's different than even the team last year is if you look at the opening game last year against Western Kentucky, we played 8 guys. Brought Ronnie DeGray, brought Xavier Bell, brought Mate off the bench. I would tell you that like we have 9, if not 10, legit guys every day who's been able to be competitive and been able to add value through this whole process. So that's kind of the biggest difference is you've been able to see good players versus other good players. I think our staff does a phenomenal job that we've been able to get a ton of data. I mean, we were just looking as a staff at what's the most efficient 2 man group, 3 man combos, 4 man, 5 man, and like we're north, which if you know anything about 5 man combos, it's just really rare that you get more than 40 possessions by game 5, game 7. And we have a lot more than 40 possessions of lineup combinations that we can kind of think through. So I think that they've been together. We've been able to. They've been able to be comfortable with one another. They've been able to understand like this guy does this. This guy's deficiencies are here. Let's stay away from this. So I think you see players kind of on the same page. As a coach, you study it pretty in depth and you think you have an idea. But I think what's been great and why I think that we'll be able to proceed pretty well beginning out the gates is you see the players picking up on it. And to have that many juniors and seniors, guys who've been around, it helps. And they've done a really, really good job from the moment they've stepped on campuses. And then we've been pretty hands-on for the time that we've been given.
Take me through your first opponent here, UNC Asheville coming in. Just what do they do well, and what are you guys prepping for with difficulties that you can face?
One, they have a really good player in Toya Solomon, who's projected as preseason player of the year, and I believe they've won 20 wins, 3 years consecutively. Mike Morrell has done a phenomenal job. And then I would tell you Cam Johnson. I mean, they'll tell you that he's the second best player, but you have a player with size at 6'6", 6'7", who can do a multitude of things. Can finish around the rim, can pass, can shoot on the perimeter. So they've got two really good pieces. Then they have a point guard who didn't play last year, and according to Mike, the head coach, he was their best offensive player, and that's saying something knowing you got Toya Solomon on the team. And Wright averaged 11 points a game at Loyola Marymount, but he was there similar to what we had with TJ Williams. He was there all last year, so conceptually I think he understands what's happening. So when you have a fifth-year guy at that point guard spot who averaged double digits in the WCC, and then you return really two good players, it's not hard to figure out why that they're amongst the top two teams considered in their league. I've seen them first and I've seen them second. I think they were second in the preseason poll. If you look at a lot of people at our non-conference schedule, many people have it top 20, top 25 in the country, and so we're not dipping our toe in the water here. We're jumping out the gates pretty heavily with this group, and it'll continue to get tougher as the year progresses. But we're in for a fight on Tuesday night.
Was the non-conference, was that by design to try to load it up so when you get to conference play you don't feel like there's any difference at all?
Yeah, we haven't started out conference well in the 2 years that I've been here, and I think last year it had a lot to do with Ronnie DeGray. Last year when Ronnie went out third game of the year, we were 7 deep and just didn't have the depth in order to be able to overcome something like that. And then when he comes back, we're able to run off, I believe it was 6 in a row, maybe 7. But we have depth now, and so we do need to, again, the goal at the end of the day is to win a conference championship. So you have to be in the fight. In order to be in the fight to win a conference championship, you have to play really good teams. And, knowing that some of this is battle for Atlantis, we'll get really good matchups there. But, being able to play Loyola Chicago, DePaul at home, and then on the road against UNI and Boise State, in addition to a number of teams, we've got our hands full.
Is there challenges that poise whenever you have a non-conference like that with so many new guys that you don't really have the runway to go? You kind of have to start off immediately, I imagine.
Yeah, I think players and people too. This is true of people as it is of players. People know what to do, the right thing to do. They don't necessarily do the right thing, and so we can know what is right. We need to be able to execute what is right. And stylistically, teams present different challenges. And this will happen with UNC Asheville just in regards to their perimeter defense and their willingness to push up and really try to create a lot defensively via turnovers. That's going to be challenges. So stylistically, you have all of these games that are different, and I don't think that we're presented that every day in practice. There's a style that we play that players are comfortable with, and we try to throw curveballs every now and then, but that's what games present is stylistically, here's the issue. The good thing is you have some film, so you can kind of go in with some level of an agenda in order to counter whatever it is they're trying to do. But I do think that from a challenge perspective, this non-conference schedule presents us, and it's ultimately to get to an end goal of winning a conference championship.
Coach, aside from new faces, roster depth this year, what other big differences do you see with this year's team?
Yeah, it's a we mentioned perimeter shooting. We've been able to do that. I thought rebounding for us it wasn't out the gate. I don't know that we were fantastic at really rebounding the basketball out the gate. I would also tell you the same thing from a turnover perspective. In the two games that we've played, we've been really good at rebounding out the gate, and we've done a really good job of ball security. So we need to continue to rebound the basketball. We were number 2 in the league last year in offensive rebounding inside of our conference. We were number 1 at defensive rebounding. We were number 1 in margin. That needs to continue. I do think we're better on the offensive glass than what we were a year ago. It hasn't resulted. We've had some games. What it's resulted in is it hasn't resulted in conversions, and we need to do a better job at just being able to finish around the rim. It has led to more free throw opportunities, and we haven't really been able to cash in at a rate. The other day at practice was, that was a little encouraging. There's a drill that we do where we try to put quite a bit of pressure on guys in order to make free throws, and I believe we made 17 in a row. That was, as a team, that's a lot of guys shooting when we're in the practice gym. But I think there's signs, but, we are more aggressive on the offensive glass, and I don't know. We'll see what we're like from a free throw shooting, but the first two exhibition games haven't done us any favors at the free throw line.
I guess, can you walk through us what kind of lessons you learned from that Santa Clara scrimmage?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to think back now because it's been 2 weeks and I'm just thinking about yesterday's practice. I went out of there really, I went away from the Drake scrimmage and I said to myself, we have 8. I was hoping we had 10, possibly even 11. I said, I know we have 8. I think right now we're at a 10-man rotation. Wasn't happy with how that ended up there at Drake simply because we were trying to get some of our guys to play against their better players, and was hoping to walk away possibly surprised. And when I walked out of Santa Clara, I thought, one, Santa Clara is pretty good, and I walked away really optimistic. The way that thought we did a great job on the glass. We were plus 11 in that 36 minutes. There were some positives that I thought were really, really fixable. When you play 2 littles on the court in KG, Kenyon Giles, and Dre, people are going to get interior focused and try to mismatch hunt and try to get people cross-matched. And I didn't think schematically we understood what we were doing we weren't great at it, and we got better as the time went on. So I walked out of there really optimistic, but the biggest thing I learned was, there's areas and fundamentals we had to clean up. We've had 2 weeks. We've almost treated this like the NFL. The NFL plays their last exhibition, and then they get 2 weeks. And I think the 2 weeks have been good for us.
Which in the Drake scrimmage, we saw a lot of, Kenyon and Mike put up a lot of shots from the outside whenever they were on the court together. Is that a pairing that, to pull back the curtain, is that something we'll see of those guys playing together a lot out there, or is that what it will look like?
Yeah, you'll see them play a lot together. Mike's done a good job of being able to handle the lead guard position. We've been able to make sure that Kenyon's also had some lead guard opportunities. But the great thing, even going back to that Drake scrimmage and those ODO segments, when you watch Mike, he made shots with the ball in his hands and he made shots without the ball in his hands. And so I think he's comfortable doing both. I know KG's comfortable doing both. So all of that to say, you'll definitely see both of them on the court.
I feel like the pieces, in terms of like the player skill sets, do the pieces fit better than they have, maybe your first 2 years? Like, do you feel like there's more versatility and just like the players mesh better?
Well, my first year, in my mind, like here's the way I think about it: is we need to get the players better. Like if we can get the players better, we can get the team better. And so my focus has always been like we're going to spend a great deal of time getting our players better. And we're going to talk them through. These are the challenges that you're going to see. This is how we're going to navigate it. And it could be via film, it could be in practice of just being really heads on. My first year, a lot of those guys did not sign up for me. I mentioned this earlier. They could have brought Kermit the Frog in here to be the head coach, and Colby Rogers had to play. Quincy Ballard had to play. And I always think back, like, did we do right by those guys? And Colby Rogers left here as setting a record in 3-point shots and made. And you think about that, it's a heck of an achievement. And just I thought he did a good job as a season. Quincy Ballard left here better. Xavier Bell left here better. Corey Washington left here better. Bijan Cortez. And so that's kind of how I evaluate it. When you look at guys getting better, then it comes down to, all right, this is your skill set. This is where we need you to be good. What I think we have is we have more of an interior presence simply because there's greater depth there. My first year we tried to play Kenny and Quincy together. I was hoping that it would work. It just there were some things that we would get exposed on that we had to shore up, especially once we got to conference that we were able to see. And then I thought last year it wasn't Quincy Ballard's strengths are different than what Will Berg and Emmanuel Corafor's strengths are. And so I think there's more, it's almost like they can be pressure releases, whereas previous years they couldn't be pressure releases. We couldn't just throw to a 5 at the top of the key and then have other action behind because that guy's allowed to be a decision maker. And so Quincy was phenomenal at being able to go catch stuff at places very few players could catch and great defensively. But we can play through Will. Like we can play through Emmanuel. And that's different than those two previous teams. We could a little bit with Kenny. It was just as the year progressed, we couldn't play them both together, Quincy and Kenny.
Through film sessions, practices, and the couple scrimmages you've had so far, how have you seen Dylan Beatty kind of develop?
Dylan Beatty comes from a basketball family and known his family a long time. And I've watched his growth. What Dylan has to do is play under control. He is such a scorer. Brian Amunique is the same way. Okay, that they think scoring, and you do not want to rewire guys and get them to try to defer. Their compliment is that they can really, really score the ball, and they think. The issue being you have to be under control, and you've been able to get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, if you go back and you look at his state championship game at Lancaster, like he was incredible. And it's just that's not necessarily going to translate. I think the thing that he's had to get used to is he's never had to play the perimeter before. So he's playing the perimeter. He's also on his third coach in 3 years. So there's all this new terminology. But what we have to do is he's going to be a good player. I'm not telling you that he's not right now, but I'm just telling you his ceiling is really, really high. The thing that coaches don't know is you can know a guy's going to be a good player. You don't know when he's going to be a good player. We have to get him under control. There are times where he gets a little out of control and he can get sped up a little bit. We've got to get him a little bit more under control. But I will tell you, after Santa Clara, he called me and said, can we meet? And you should have seen this list of questions. I said, meet me. I said, I'm going to be up there all day Sunday and going through quite a bit. So, come by at 7. I'll be about wrapping it up around then. He comes by at 7, and he's got a list of questions. The number of times I've had players ask to meet that come in with an agenda, more than one agenda. They all have one agenda. But it beyond one agenda, I can count on one hand. And I can think back to players that have done it. They've all been really good players. And so you love players that really, really want to grow. He wants to grow. He's received the message, and you can tell he's putting in the time.
And then with those adjustments he's had to go through so far, how do you think he's fared with them?
Yeah, I mean, nobody's a finished product. And so what you see, and I've said this, progress is not made in leaps, it's made in steps. Players want to think, and we all do, right? When people graduate, they think that they're ready to be a Fortune 500 CEO. I know I did when I was 22. I was ready to take over everything because you think you know a lot. And then you grow older and you're like, man, you know what? Mom and dad actually knew what they were talking about. But when you're a teenager, you don't think mom and dad know as much. And you realize that they actually know quite a bit. And the problem with young people is they want progress. I need to be here today and I need to be there tomorrow. And it's like it does not work that way. And you have to remind them you need to lean into the struggle. Okay, you can't fight it. And if you're not leaning into the struggle and you're not leaning into the fight because you think that you're going to get there here in a month, 2 months. I was just reading something the other day about Gen Z and how they think they're going to be millionaires by sitting in Starbucks the other day. They just think, eventually I'm going to get there. And it's like, well, every day you're not out doing the things you need to do in order to get to wherever it is you're trying to go. So I have to remind players constantly, progress is made in steps. It's not made in leaps. We would love it to be in leaps. It's not that way. And so he's made progress. I just think it's kind of like when you see your cousin who you haven't seen in 3 years, and you're like, look how tall you've gotten. And the parents are like, look kind of the same to me. It doesn't look much different. That's players. For us, we kind of see it. And I remember people would say this about Quincy Ballard. He's gotten so much better. To us, it was just like he's making strides. And I think for people have to understand, and players have to understand, that these are steps and not leaps.
So is there a question or something that Dylan brought up that made you happy that he's on the right track or he gets it? He's on the right track?
I think his first question was, how do I grow? And then his second question was, how do I help the team win? So again, the better you get the player, the better you can get the team. And so I appreciate you need somebody with a growth mindset. Like, how do I get better? And then you need to understand that it has to be within the context of others. I've mentioned this before, but there's a lot of players that want to be the best player on the team, and they don't necessarily want to be the best player for the team. He was asking, how do I be the best player for the team? Like, what are the things I need to do in not only in my own game in order to add value, but in order to contribute to winning? And just that's the right mindset.
So you came up, in the world where, you take a job, you bring in recruiting class, they stay with you for 3-4 years. Year 3 is usually when you expect to make the jump. Like, how much different is it now? Just what are fair expectations you think for this new era of college basketball and for a year 3 coach?
Yeah, one, I've never really, I don't know. I put zero thought into that. I think about today. I think that a lot of people, and we've talked to the team about this, tomorrow I'll start a diet, tomorrow I'll do this, tomorrow I'll do that, and you kind of let the moment get away. And I really haven't thought, I don't go into this other than I am interested in winning games. So when you hear me say this, don't misinterpret it. But my focus isn't on winning games. It's on how do you win championships. A lot of teams win games. How do you win championships? So my question is today, does this look like championship habits? Does this look like a championship practice? Does this look like championship behavior? All of those things that you need in place in order to win championships. So I really don't think, just because there's so many things that factor into it, from injuries and personnel to a variety of things that go into it. So I just really lock in on today and try to stay focused on that.
What's the progress with championship habits and practice from this team? Obviously very early, but just what's the progress there from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the staff gets mad at me because I'll walk out of practice and I can't believe we're this far behind, and they're like, well, we've only been running for 2 weeks, and I'm like, I can't believe we can't play 30 minutes hard. And they're like, well, we've only been here 2 weeks. They've only been together for this amount of time. So I do think that if you ask me my weaknesses, I don't have very much patience. Don't do a good job there. And I have to remind myself what I just mentioned earlier, that progress is made in steps and not leaps. But you think you're a little further along sometimes, and I think that games kind of provide that level of humility. I think you have to avoid pride. Pride is you thinking this stuff is easy. You know, if players are prideful and arrogant, they just think they're going to go out there and I'm going to kill from the opening moments. It's just you realize that that's the wrong mindset. But the focus every day is, are we doing the things that I believe are going to win basketball games? Rebounding the ball, taking care of the ball, sharing the ball, and kind of doing that with people that are committed to doing the right things. And just as a day by day issue, I think I've seen that.
What's a guy like Drake Hindle won a national championship won a national championship at the JUCO level? What does he bring to the team this year?
You know, the number one thing that Dre needs to do is because of his size, is he needs to apply pressure. Like, you have to be really good at that size at being able to apply pressure. It does you no good, me, the 53-year-old man, and Dre, the 20-year-old young man. We can't be doing the same thing. Like, I can't stand in front of the ball and think I'm impacting the ball, and he can't stand in front of the ball and think he's impacting the ball. There's got to be a difference between me and him. I can stand in front of the ball, all right? So you have to apply pressure. And for him, he needs to do it 94 feet. You need to be able to get into the ball, to be disruptive on the ball. But not only do you need to be able to apply pressure, you need to be able to handle pressure. And so you need to be good players are going to help our team more than they help the other. So we need to make sure that at the end of the day, we're 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Okay, good players are going to help our team twice as much. Elites are going to help us 3 times as much. They're going to be a 3-to-1 assist to turnover guys. So we've really told Dre, your job is to apply pressure, and I think you'll see some of that. And the first game against Drake, he fouled like crazy. I think Drake was in the bonus when you look at that first group, the first 20 minutes. I think they were in the bonus at the 15-minute mark. And it was just because we were making undisciplined decisions. And the second game, he was night and day better. I'm not telling you he was the best player on the court. What I am telling you is that his growth from that game to the next game was terrific. He understood exactly. He caused Santa Clara to call timeouts because of his pressure. And Santa Clara, in my opinion, has got a really good backcourt. And so he was able to do that simply because of his ability to apply pressure. So that's what we need him to do. We need him to apply pressure, and he needs to handle pressure. If you go out there and meet with him and say, what does Coach Mills ask you to do? And he doesn't say apply pressure and handle pressure, I need to know that. All right, because we need to revisit. He's been given a card that tells him what his job is to do. But he definitely needs to do those 2 things.
Yeah, besides for defense, what about his shooting has impressed you so far with him?
He's gotten better. You know, he's a 32% three-point shooter there last year at Hutch. I think he probably, in my mind, you knock off somewhere between 8 to 12% when they level up, and he's kind of been somewhere in that neighborhood. Been a little bit better than that, but he doesn't get caught up in shooting the ball. He needs to get caught up in moving the ball. The ball's had energy at times, and you get some guys who have a scorer's mentality, and they just dribble, and you'll see the energy just die out of everybody. He needs to do a good job of moving the basketball, and I will tell you, in the last 10 days or so, he's the one guy that we have that's a positive point per possession wise over a 1. That's what we call positive, of getting to the paint and decision making and making shots at that level. What he's been able to do is find other guys. He was underwater on assisted turnovers about 10 days ago. He's well north of that. And it's happened in all the past 10 days simply because of his ability to get to the paint. But he needs to take open shots when he has them. He can make them. But he also needs to apply pressure on the paint, and then he needs to do the same thing that I just mentioned about Dylan. He needs to play off of 2 feet and be in control.
Anything else? All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Coach.